Nice to see you.
Buenos días, nice to see you as well.
Ay, buenos días, Ashley. Ok, ahora sí, les presento a Ashley Drew, como les comentaba recién, la gerente de sustentabilidad de Américas, que va a estar dando una charla sobre el camino a la sostenibilidad en el packaging. Así que, ok, Ashley, it's all yours, you're good to go.
Excellent. I will share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, Ashley. Perfect.
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you, Florencia. Good morning to everyone. It's an honor to be here virtually to speak with you today. Hopefully, maybe in the future, we'll be in person to do this as well. So our agenda for today, first, we're going to kind of ground ourselves in talking about the impact of packaging functionality. And the goal is for that to lead us into a journey to sustainable labeling. So we will go through practical solutions for how to make the switch to more sustainable products using informed decisions to reduce that in several different categories. And then we will round things out by learning how we can close the loop and support recycling and reuse today. So just to go ahead and jump in here, packaging that's not doing its job is inherently unsustainable. Now, that may seem fairly obvious to you, but it's worth noting, I think, because there are so many different factors to think about when choosing the right packaging components of a product. And a label that's doing its job is therefore helping to reduce waste on its journey to the customer. So one really good example of this is food waste. Well-designed food and beverage packaging helps to avoid the waste and the spoilage of those embedded resource in that product as it makes its way on its journey to the consumer. So keeping that in mind, that packaging has a functional purpose to fulfill, first and foremost, shown here at the top of this hierarchy, then we can look at other factors that lend themselves to the overall impact of the product. Within these functional parameters, how can we design this package to be more sustainable? And there are things we consider such as material types, where they were sourced, the impact of those resources, the recyclability of each material component, as well as the compatibility of all packaging elements for the recycling stream. Now, moving a level further down, we can use the next decisions to make a positive impact on climate and the circular economy. And this means we can look at elements such as further optimizing production and raw materials, utilizing renewable materials that decrease the burden on natural resources, and making sure that we take all of these elements into account in order to support the recyclability or the reuse and keep these really high value materials in circulation for as long as possible. So keeping all of that in mind today, I want to take you on a journey to sustainable labeling and give some really practical examples, like I mentioned, of things that you can do to enhance the sustainability of your products. And I also want to mention that sustainability can be very overwhelming for people. It's a really big scope of topics, but I want to acknowledge that and say that it's really important to remember that you should just start where you are. Even really small changes have the potential to offer really big impacts, especially looking longer term. So today we will go on a journey and discuss what making the switch to more sustainable products means and how you can further enhance your brand's packaging sustainability through closing the loop and supporting circular design. The first thing we want to do, the first step in making the switch to more sustainable products, is to make sure that we're making informed decisions. And there are many different factors to consider when we discuss this. And one example that's making an informed decision is through life cycle assessment. And LCA, I'll call it for short, certainly it's not the only tool to use when making these decisions, and it definitely should always be used as more of an indication rather than the sole deciding factor when making the switch. But it can be a really effective tool for informing when used with verified methods and data. So this is one example of what an LCA can look like. And this example today comes from our tool called Label Life. It's our LCA tool that UPM Raffletech has developed. And in this example, we're demonstrating the sustainability benefit for cradle-to-gate scope when switching from a standard fossil-based PP product to a renewable forest film non-fossil based PCR based product with a PCR liner. So in addition to these absolute values that you can see here in the middle for this example, we're also able to contextualize this data to equate to real world figures to help us put things into perspective. So you can see here over towards the right, this can be things such as making sure that we're equating water savings to something that you can kind of wrap your head around. So 154 10-minute showers resulting in that 13% reduction in water usage. And then additionally, the 21% reduction in CO2 equates to 22 long haul flights. So that really helps us put things into our mind and make this information more tangible. So to give a very brief scope behind our LCA scope, you may have remembered me mentioning that it's cradle to gate scope. So this is our standard LCA scope. And in this example we have below here, we use this for all of our standard calculations, but there are many other possibilities that we can look at within this tool to demonstrate further down the value chain as well, such as the printing and converting, the label dispensing and usage, and demonstrating different end-of-life scenarios, such as recycling, incineration, and landfill to see what the impact of that is. All right. So knowing that we need to first make informed decisions and that the packaging sustainability follows the functional requirements of building a sustainable package, now I want to take you along the journey to more sustainable labeling. And here at UPM Raflatac, our sustainable product portfolio is structured in this way that you see here with several different R categories, going from reduce, recycled, renew, all the way to recycling and reuse. And today we're going to go through each of those examples and look at ways that you can take practical action towards each of those. So first up, let's talk about reduce. If you think of this as a progression along your sustainability journey, reducing is often one of the easiest and most accessible ways that you can take to lower your environmental impact and the strain on natural resources. So this means making decisions like switching to thinner, lighter weight materials, and it also means optimizing production efficiency and can also mean reducing waste whenever possible. So a great first example of that, and maybe one of the easiest ways to take this measurable action, is to down gauge. So one way to apply these principles and practices to move to materials that have been down gauged. And in this example, I want to highlight a positive climate action you can see illustrated here through using a label material that allows you to decrease your product's carbon footprint. And it's really important to note that you'll see here that we have the Carbon Trust logo. So in our model, all of our calculations have been third-party verified by an external source, which in this case is the Carbon Trust. So we partner with them very closely on our carbon calculations. And then going one step further in the evolution of reducing your impact is moving to products that have been responsibly offset, have their carbon emissions responsibly offset, to allow for a certified carbon neutral label material for a cradle to customer scope. So you may remember me mentioning cradle to gate scope earlier. These products have actually been offset cradle to customer, which includes the transportation to the customer so that you can kind of share in those carbon reduction benefits. But this is another really great way to reduce the footprint of your label material as compared to a standard emissions and GHG of the standard fossil-based product here. So the next stop along our journey is to talk about recycled materials. Incorporating post-consumer recycled materials also helps to reduce the pressure on virgin fossil-based feedstocks, which is great, and therefore reduces your impact and promotes the supply and demand of recycled content in the economy. So I mentioned we're going to want to support the circular economy, and a great way to do that is by supporting the supply and demand of these recycled materials so that we have more of them available for use. So utilizing recycled content is a really smart switch to make for a few different reasons. In addition to supporting that supply and demand of the PCR that I mentioned, which creates a larger scale market for these products, including PCR content, can help lower your impact through avoiding the extraction of virgin raw materials and natural resources. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, this product supports the transition to a more circular economy, which keeps these materials in rotation for multiple life cycles for as long as possible. The next stop on our journey is our Renew category. So not only is focusing on responsibly managed and sourced renewable fiber really great way to take action, but exciting ways that we can explore this further is to move beyond fossils completely by choosing materials that are made with sustainable and renewable resources. So a really innovative concept and product that we've developed, and one example of moving to renewable products is our UPM Raflatac forest film, which is a really great way, an example to take action to replace the fossil-based film products that we're currently using. Forest film is designed as a complete drop-in product, which is really interesting. And this is for both PE and PP. And it's also recyclable within the same stream as it's chemically identical, to the standard resin-based fossil films. And the difference here is that forest film is the 100% wood-based solution that comes from a residue of the wood pulping process. So it's really a true byproduct that comes from that process, and meaning that it doesn't need anything additional extracted from the environment to make this product, since it's a byproduct. And not only does it not compete for land use and food production because it's a byproduct, I also want to mention that it's ISCC Plus certified to ensure that responsibility of its origin as well. So I'm just going to go through a quick example of what that process looks like. And to illustrate this, this is just to demonstrate what the forest film value chain looks like. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, this product is derived from a residual tall oil, which is a byproduct of the wood pulping process. So the resin that's manufactured is a drop-in solution because it's chemically identical to that fossil-based film PP and PE. And this is a great solution for brands wanting to move away from fossils, and provides a great brand story also that connects with their sustainability goals. And finally, we come to our last R category, which houses recycling and reuse. And here we can focus on further supporting the circular economy and closing that loop through things like designing for recycle compatibility in order to enable that highest possible recycling outcome, like I mentioned. And we want to take a holistic view of packaging recyclability, and one way to do that is through wash-off adhesives, through these really cool solutions. And wash-off adhesives allow the packaging to be used for reuse scenarios. And choosing these help support the circular economy in a few different ways. One is they can enable recycling, so ensuring the label comes off during the recycling process and is properly segregated, which allows for that main packaging component to be recycled, enabling those higher recycling outcomes. And then I mentioned reuse. So these products can also wash off in the industrial wash process and allow for that package to be reused, such as bottles. So as we come to the conclusion of our journey to sustainable labeling today, I want to summarize a few key points that we covered. The first is that sustainability doesn't need to be overwhelming. I think the most important thing you can do is to start somewhere that's within your direct control or influence. And even small changes have the potential for really big impacts. And second, to make sure you empower your organization to make informed, data-driven decisions. And then lastly here, utilizing resources that can give you an indication of what kind of sustainability benefit you can expect when switching to these products is important for measuring your progress towards your goals. And then finally, do your part to help close the loop and support the circular economy. And this can be anything from reducing waste, better optimization of production, down gauging, to designing for recyclability, and also utilizing that recycled content in your materials. And thank you for taking the time to be here today. And I'm happy to take questions if there are any.